Welcome to Real Money Dramas. I lost all the money a week before the wedding. I just wanted to multiply it. Everything was going perfectly. I was already in profit within a couple of hours. I could have stopped, just taken it back out. But I chose to double down. That's when it all started. A month before the ceremony, we were deep in wedding prep. Emily was picking flowers, tasting cakes, talking to the photographer. I was nodding, smiling, pretending to be fully present, but my head was somewhere else. There was this moment, a perfect market setup. I'd been watching it quietly for weeks. When it finally happened, I knew this was rare. The kind of opportunity you don't get twice. I didn't even hesitate. Late at night, when Emily had already gone to bed, I opened my laptop and made the move. I used the wedding money, all of it, quietly. No second thoughts. The plan was simple: make enough to double it, and then pull out. She'd never have to know. Instead of a modest honeymoon, we'd celebrate on a Greek island, just like she dreamed. It was supposed to be easy, quick, clean. The next morning, Emily was talking to her mom about table settings. I was looking at the chart. My heart was pounding. The numbers were green. It was working. All day, I played the role. Answered calls, gave opinions about the cake, even confirmed the DJ. But inside, I was glued to the screen. A few hours later, the profit was real. Not fantasy, actual money. I had nearly recouped the whole amount. I sat there, staring at the balance. I could exit now, transfer the money back, delete the app, and pretend none of this ever happened. But I didn't. I told myself, if I just double it, really double it, we won't just have a wedding. We'll have a life upgrade. No compromises. No budget cuts. First-class honeymoon, maybe even a down payment for something bigger after. So instead of withdrawing, I re-entered. Same setup. Same confidence. Just a higher stake. I didn't know it then, but I had already crossed the line. A few hours later, I was in profit. I could have stopped. But instead, I decided to double the amount. The first trade went better than I expected. By evening, I was already up. Not just a little, enough to feel like I was doing something right. It wasn't luck. I told myself that. I spotted the setup. I acted fast. This wasn't gambling. This was a calculated move. And it worked. I watched the numbers grow and felt a high I didn't know I'd been craving. All those months planning the wedding, every conversation about napkins and guest lists, they faded. Here was something real, precise, immediate. Money from nothing but timing and guts. I closed part of the position late that night, just enough to almost cover what I'd put in. I could have stopped. I could have returned the money, told myself, lesson learned, and moved on. Instead, I leaned back in the chair and started calculating again. If I double it, just once more, we won't just rent that small restaurant downtown. We'll get a view, an ocean, a sunset. Emily once showed me a villa on Santorini, laughing, saying, "Imagine that." I'd nodded back then, knowing it was out of reach. Now it wasn't. I wasn't reckless. That's what I told myself. I wasn't throwing everything in, just letting the rest ride. The same strategy, the same calm. In the market, it was still on my side. Emily walked into the room holding her laptop. She was glowing from talking to the planner. "What do you think of these invitations?" I smiled, nodded. "Looks perfect." She kissed me on the cheek and went back. She didn't know what I was really looking at. The numbers on the screen flickered green. Everything was still under control. Better than control. I felt like I was ahead of the game. And for the first time, I saw a version of the future that didn't feel cramped or limited. I started to picture it. The wedding, the villa, the sea behind us, everything paid up front, no loans, no stress. A clean start. For once, I didn't feel behind. I felt like someone who knew what he was doing. That night, I didn't even need to check the screen constantly. I trusted it. I trusted myself. When I woke up the next morning, I reached for my phone with a quiet confidence. It wasn't there. No notifications. No balance. Just a message. The trade worked perfectly. I thought, this is it. Now we won't just get married. We'll start a new life. But the next morning, I couldn't withdraw a single cent. The balance was there. Double what I started with. It should have been a relief. A victory. But when I clicked withdraw, nothing happened. Just a pop-up. Account temporarily suspended for activity review. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I refreshed the page. Tried again. Same message. I clicked into the support chat. Nothing but automated replies. "Thank you for your patience. Your request is being processed." It didn't feel real. The money was right there. I could see it. but I couldn't touch it. Emily came into the room and asked if I'd booked the tasting at the venue. I said, "Yeah, it's all under control." She smiled, kissed me on the head, and left. I stared at the screen like it was mocking me. That night, I read every line of the platform's terms and conditions. Somewhere deep in the fine print, security reviews may take up to 30 business days. 30. That's 6 weeks. We had 20 days until the wedding. I started pacing the room. Every possible outcome played in my head. What if they flagged me for something? What if they froze it permanently? What if I had to explain this? No, I couldn't think like that. The money wasn't lost. It was just stuck. Temporarily. I kept repeating that to myself, like a broken recording. Just wait. Don't panic. The next day, I tried calling support. No answer. I emailed from 2 different accounts. Same canned replies. Your case is under review. Emily texted me from the bridal salon. The dress is perfect. Can't wait for you to see it. I wrote back. You'll be the most beautiful bride in the world. Meanwhile, I was refreshing my inbox every 10 minutes. I didn't eat much that week. Couldn't sleep. I left my laptop open by the bed, checking the screen every time I rolled over. Day 3. Day 4. Nothing. Just the same frozen screen and those 5 words. Account under temporary review. I started imagining the worst. Not just the money. The conversations. The questions. The looks from her parents. Her friends. The moment when everything collapsed. I opened my notes app and started typing what I'd say to Emily, how I'd explain it. But I couldn't even finish the first sentence. So I erased it, closed the app, and decided to keep quiet. I knew I had to tell her. But instead, I started lying. I kept the mask on. From the outside, nothing had changed. I was still the calm one, the reliable one. The guy who had everything under control. I answered calls, nodded at decisions, joked with her father about wedding costs, like someone who wasn't staring at a locked screen every night. But inside, it was eating me alive. Emily told her friends how stable I was. Jack's like a rock, she said. I don't worry about anything with him. At dinner with her family, her mom gave me a gift, a watch. You're the kind of man every mother hopes for her daughter. Solid. Dependable. I looked at the watch on my wrist. The weight of it was unbearable. I smiled. Said thank you. Looked her straight in the eye. But all I could think about was that screen. The money. Frozen. The lie growing bigger every day. I started rehearsing fake stories in my head. If Emily ever asked about the budget, I had responses ready. It's all in a joint account, I'd say. Or, I'm handling the last payments soon. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to move past the question. And it worked for a while. No one suspected anything. I was still the guy who planned ahead. The guy who made spreadsheets and tracked expenses. That reputation I'd built? It was now a prison. Every compliment was a new chain around my neck. At night, I sat in the dark, staring at the frozen balance. I'd refresh. Wait. Refresh again. Still locked. Every second I wasn't pretending, I was waiting. Watching for an update. A sign that this nightmare would end. And then, finally, on the 7th day, an email came. I read the subject line 3 times. Your account has been reactivated. I didn't breathe. Just opened the message. It was short. Your review is complete. All functions have been restored. I logged in. Everything was there. The balance hadn't changed. I was back in control. I stared at the withdraw button. All I had to do was click. Pull the money out. Make the transfers. Put everything back exactly as it was. In the spiral. But I didn't click. Not yet. I looked at the charts again. The trend was still going. The market hadn't slowed. In fact, it was better than before. If I just waited a little longer. That thought, it came in quietly, but it stuck. And instead of ending it, I left the money in. On the 7th day, the email came. The account was unlocked. I could have fixed everything, but I didn't. The money was there. Unlocked. Just a few clicks, and everything could be normal again. I opened the platform and stared at the balance. A little more than I had originally put in. Technically, I had already won. I could withdraw it all, return the wedding budget, and pretend none of this ever happened. That was the plan. But I didn't follow the plan. I sat there, hands on the keyboard, not moving. The market was still trending up. I told myself it'd be stupid not to ride it a little longer. Just a few more days. The way things were going, I could turn this into something bigger. We could have more than just a ceremony. We could have the wedding Emily dreamed about, the one we both knew we couldn't afford when we started planning. White stone villas, ocean views, a private chef on an island. Santorini wasn't just possible now. It was within reach. All I needed was a little more. So I stayed in. The risk didn't feel like risk anymore. I convinced myself it was logical, rational, controlled. I wasn't chasing losses, I was managing a win. Emily was sending me photos of wedding details, decorations, playlists. I replied with emojis, said, "Looks great," and went right back to the screen. Every hour that passed, I felt more confident. The numbers climbed. I was in the zone again. Focused. Sharp. Then my phone rang. It was the wedding planner. She needed a payment. Not the final one, just a deposit to lock in the venue. Urgent. Without it, we could lose the reservation. I told her I'd handle it that evening. But I knew the truth. I had nothing to send. Every cent was still in the market. I could have exited, pulled out just enough to cover it. But that meant interrupting the trade, missing potential growth. The charts still looked strong. The setup was still intact. So I made a choice. I didn't close the position. I didn't send the payment. I didn't even mention it to Emily. I told myself I'd fix it tomorrow. The market would move a bit more, and then I'd take care of everything at once. One clean exit. The next morning, I checked the account again. The numbers were higher. It was working. I felt a rush, not relief, but something more dangerous. Like I was invincible. Like I had figured it out. And just as I was about to enjoy that feeling, my phone buzzed again. The planner's assistant, "We need the deposit today, or the booking is off." 2 days later, I got the call. They needed the final deposit for the wedding. And I couldn't pull a single dollar. Everything was still in the market. The clock was ticking. The market still looked good, and the trade was technically in profit. But none of it mattered when the planner sent a final message, "Payment due today." No exceptions. If I pulled the money out now, I'd interrupt the trade, possibly lose the momentum. I told myself I just needed more time. But there was no time left. So I did what I hadn't planned. I picked up the phone and called James. We hadn't spoken in a while, not deeply. But he was the only one I could call without raising questions. He answered on the second ring, casual as always. "Hey, man, what's up?" I didn't give a long story. Just told him I had a short-term cash issue, wedding logistics, a temporary snag. Said I'd pay him back in a few days, tops. I kept my voice calm. Made it sound like a formality. He didn't ask many questions. Just said, "Text me the amount," and hung up. 10 minutes later, the money landed in my account. That was it. No judgment. No lectures. Just trust. I paid the planner right away. Got a confirmation. The booking was safe. Emily would never know anything had been at risk. She texted later that night, "Thank you for taking care of it. Everything's coming together perfectly." I looked at the message for a while. Then I went back to the screen. The trade was still active, still growing, still dangerous. But I didn't exit. Instead, I opened a new position. This time with leverage. The numbers looked right. The setup was strong. I told myself it was calculated, not reckless. Just one more move to push the profit higher before I pulled out for good. It was the last time. That's what I said, out loud, as if hearing it would make it true. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Emily was still asleep. I slipped out of bed and checked the screen. Everything was green. Still working. The plan was holding. I felt smart again. In control. I told myself this was the final stretch. After this, I'd stop. Pay James back. Withdraw everything. Get married and move on. But somewhere deep down, I already knew that line, "just one more time," had started to lose its meaning. And I knew exactly what I was risking now. I knew I shouldn't. But I still opened a leverage trade. And I told myself, this is the last time. The wedding was 7 days away. Everything was locked in: venue, guests, rings. Emily was glowing. I was smiling. And inside, I was calculating. The leverage trade was still open. The numbers looked fine, but I knew how quickly that could change. I'd been watching the market long enough to understand. When it turns, it doesn't warn you. Still, I held the position. The logic was brutal in its simplicity. If this last move worked, I'd have enough to cover everything, pay James back, and still walk away with profit. If it didn't. I didn't finish that thought. That night, Emily asked if I wanted to run through the vows together. She was sitting on the couch with a notebook, excited, focused. I said I was tired. "Long day," I told her. "I just need to lie down for a bit." She smiled and said, "Okay. You'll be amazing anyway." I went to bed with one thing on my mind: the chart. I didn't check it again before sleep. I didn't set any alerts. I thought I'd wake up, check the screen, and sea green. I was almost sure of it. I was wrong. I opened the laptop the next morning. The loading felt slower than usual, or maybe it was just my heart racing. When the chart appeared, I froze. Everything had dropped. Hard. Overnight, while I was asleep, the price reversed sharply. There was a spike down, a violent one. My position was wiped. Completely. The screen showed a flat balance. Zero. Not down. Not small loss. Nothing. My first instinct wasn't panic. It was denial. I refreshed the page. Logged out, logged back in. Same result. I checked the trade history. The position had been liquidated hours ago. The market dipped just enough to hit the margin call. The leverage magnified the drop, and just like that, it was over. I sat in silence for a long time. Emily knocked gently and asked if I wanted coffee. I told her yes. My voice didn't crack. I sounded normal. She brought it in, kissed me, said, 1 week to go. I smiled, took the cup, said, can't wait. She left. I stared at the screen again. No money, no backup, no plan. James was expecting his money back soon. The wedding was fully booked. There was no more room for mistakes. But I didn't tell her anything. Not that day. Not the next. I kept getting texts from family, friends, all saying how excited they were. I replied with emojis, with can't wait, with lies. Because now, lying was easier than explaining. I lost everything. But the next day, I smiled at her over coffee and lied that everything was on track. I moved through the days like everything was fine. Emily was glowing. Her calls were filled with joy, about flowers, music, seating charts. I listened. I responded. I played the part. And inside, I was calculating how long I could keep it going. Every time the phone rang, I thought it might be James. But he didn't call. Not yet. That made it worse. I knew he trusted me. And I knew I had nothing to give back. The wedding was days away now. I told myself I'd figure it out right after. Maybe there'd be enough in the envelopes. Maybe I could fix it all before she ever knew. Emily called one afternoon. Her voice was light. You've been so quiet lately. Nervous? I said, just tired from work. Everything's fine. She laughed, told me I was allowed to be a little nervous. It's a big moment, she said. I said something reassuring. I don't even remember what. I was already staring at the blank screen again, trying to come up with a new lie in case someone asked anything. I avoided checking my bank app. I knew what I'd see: zero. There was no magic fix coming. No miracle bounce. Just a wall I had no way through. That night, I called James. I didn't lie, but I didn't tell the full truth either. I said the money was tied up, that I'd get it back to him after the wedding. Just give me a few more days, I told him. Then I'll square everything. He didn't press. He just said, all right. I hated how easy he made it. Emily came over later that night with a small box. Inside, cufflinks engraved with our initials. A gift from her. She smiled and said, they're for the big day. I nodded, said thank you. Put them in my drawer next to the wedding bands I still couldn't believe we'd paid for. She stayed over. We sat on the couch, going over final plans. She asked about the honeymoon. Are you excited? She said. I told her it would be unforgettable. And in a way, that was true. I already knew what I was counting on now. Not the market. Not a strategy. Just the envelopes. How much people would gift us. How much we could collect in one night. It was the only plan I had left. She said, this will be the best day of our lives. And all I could think about was how much cash we'd get in the envelopes. The wedding was perfect. Sunlight. Music. Laughter. Everything exactly how Emily wanted. Every detail was in place, and no one suspected a thing. I stood there, next to her, surrounded by friends and family, smiling like a man who had it all under control. Inside, I was counting. Every hug, every toast, every congratulations. I was doing the math. People came up with envelopes. Some thin, some thick. I nodded, said thank you, kept a mental tally. Parents gave their gifts with warm speeches. For the honeymoon, they said, enjoy every moment. I kept smiling. Emily looked stunning, radiant. Her happiness made people tear up. And every second of it only made it worse for me. The worst part? It didn't feel fake. I was genuinely happy for her. For us. For this version of the story that she believed was real. We danced. We laughed. We took photos. And every time someone slipped another envelope into the gift box, I thought, that might be the one that saves me. James was there too. He shook my hand, pulled me into a hug, said nothing about the money. Just looked me in the eye and said, proud of you, man. That cut deeper than any accusation. By the end of the night, the box was full. At home, Emily kicked off her shoes, sat on the floor, and started opening the envelopes like a kid on her birthday. "Look at this," she said. "Can you believe how generous everyone was?" I watched her stack the bills, organize the cards, laugh at the little notes people left. She was glowing again. She looked at me. "There's more here than we expected." I nodded. Didn't say much. Just sat beside her, quietly doing my own math in my head. What I owed James. What might be left. If any of it could cover something else. She was already talking about the trip. The hotels. The ferry bookings. Which dresses to pack. What to see first when we landed. I couldn't hear her anymore. I was still smiling. Still nodding. Still pretending like nothing was wrong. But I already knew the truth. She was excited about the gifts. But I already knew there would be no honeymoon. The morning after the wedding was quiet. Emily sat at the table, sipping coffee, flipping through honeymoon brochures. She'd spread them out across the surface, flights, hotel photos, handwritten notes she'd made during the planning. "We'll start with 3 nights here," she said, pointing to a picture of a cliffside villa. "Then a week here, right by the water." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "This one has the private pool I showed you. I booked the option to cancel in case the weather turns. Smart, right?" I nodded. She looked up. "Something wrong?" I stared at her for a second. I couldn't lie anymore. "Not about this. I need to tell you something," I said. She froze. "What is it?" Her tone shifted instantly. "Is it serious?" I took a breath. It didn't help. "The money," I said. "It's gone." She blinked. "What money?" I kept going. I told her about the trades. The frozen account. The second chance. The leverage. The loss. I told her about James. The debt. The risk. The lie I'd lived through every step of our wedding. She didn't interrupt. She didn't cry. She just watched me. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she asked one question. "So, the gifts?" I nodded. "They have to go to James. Every cent." She looked down at the table. At the brochures. At the ring on her hand. She gathered them all into a stack and placed them back in the envelope they came in. She didn't tear them. Didn't throw them. Just put them away. Then she stood up. Quiet. Calm. "Instead of a honeymoon," she said slowly, "I find out my husband is a liar. And a gambler." I tried to explain, not to defend, just to say something. But she stopped me. "Don't," she said. "Just don't." She walked out of the kitchen. The room went silent again. I sat there, still wearing my wedding ring. No travel plans. No celebration. No future, at least not the one we imagined. The envelopes were already gone. The money transferred. The damage done. There was nothing left to explain. And nothing left to hide. She walked away in silence. And I sat there, wearing a ring, with empty pockets. Thanks for listening to the story till the end. Write in the comments what you think about all this. Subscribe. More untold stories are on the way.